A nigga that envy you, he around you. And that shit is more detrimental than anything, brother. And you got to watch envy over hate. See, hate could be from a distance, and you don't give a fuck about that. He can't touch you. But envy is close to you. And you got to be prepared for that.
I'm one that like to go through my hood. You know what I mean? I like to give when I go to my hood because I know the struggle. So I just keep cash on me. It's like a habit. Like I just can't. I like to look at 100. I got honestly like my house. I got maybe 100 stacks on the floor and hundreds. Just I walk on that shit, and I might have about a meal in the wall.
Because Birdman and Yellow Boy were fighting. And then Tech 9 jumped in and stole off one bird.
You said Tech 9?
Yeah, the rapper Tech 9.
You got into it with him?
Well, yeah, because Birdman and Yellow Boy were fighting. And then Tech 9 jumped in and stole off one bird.
Okay, so your brother got to step in.
Yeah, I was so mad about that. I was looking for Tech. Yeah, it wouldn't have ended well for Tech. I would have caught Tech.
Deep down, every person has a pull toward power, but while most keep it locked away, a rare few will cross any line to stay on top. These are the people who can look you in the eye and lie without blinking, turning on day one friends and family just to keep their status as the boss. In this video, we're breaking down the story of one of the most polarizing figures in music history. A man who rose from the rough blocks of New Orleans to flashy Miami mansions and Grammy wins. It sounds like a movie, but behind the scenes of the Cash Money empire, there are dark stories of betrayal, money moves gone wrong, violent plots, and accusations that make you wonder what really happened behind the bright lights. This saga begins in 1960s New Orleans with a man named Johnny Williams, a legendary go-getter who ran bars, laundromats, and restaurants across the city. Known for his status and a staggering reputation for having over 20 children, Johnny eventually settled down with a woman named Gladys Brooks. They lived above their own bar on Saratoga Street, appearing to be a local power duo, but the reality was far more complicated. Johnny was so spread thin by his dozens of businesses and massive family that he never even signed the birth certificates for his children with Gladys. When their youngest son was born in 1969, Gladys was so overwhelmed she didn't even give him a name at first, simply calling him Baby. Eventually, he became Bryan Brooks, growing up in the vibrant, music-filled atmosphere of his mother's bar. Everything shattered in 1975 when Gladys passed away. Because Johnny hadn't completed the legal paperwork to prove he was their father, the children were snatched by the state and placed into the foster system. Separated and confused, 6-year-old Bryan and his siblings were eventually adopted by an uncle and moved to the freezing remote town of Prince George in Canada, a massive culture shock from the streets of New Orleans. It took 2 years of legal battles before Johnny could bring them home to the 13th Ward.
You got one nigga hustling with all them. That's what I was, the owner in the box.
Right.
But I also played on the field sometimes.
Right.
But then I got off the field and stayed in the box.
Right.
So if I'm hustling with all you niggas, I'm supposed to make more than all you niggas.
I'm the owner.
I'm the owner of the team. I'm gonna make more than all you niggas. See, that's where the envy and the hate come in.
There it is.
I've been doing this as a young nigga. I was 15, 16 years old with the hot boys making hundreds. By the time I was 20 years old, I had 75 million, almost 100 million.
Back in New Orleans, the boys received a real-world business education by watching their father navigate deals. While the older brother, Ronald Slim Williams, was the quiet observer focused on the math, the youngest, Bryan, was loud, flashy, and obsessed with the jewelry and cars that came with success. By the time their father brought a new woman named Patricia into the home in 1981, the foundation was already set for a young man who was determined to get rich by any means necessary. The dynamic in the Williams household shifted significantly when their father, Johnny, brought home a new partner named Patricia. This move introduced Patricia's son, Eldrick Wise, into Bryan's world, and the two formed an almost instant bond. However, Eldrick had been forged by the harsh realities of the Magnolia Projects, a place where survival-type thinking was a necessity. Despite being only 13, Eldrick was already deep in the street life, and Bryan, just 12 years old, began looking up to him, drifting into dangerous circles his family never could have imagined. As Eldrick pulled Bryan back into the Magnolia neighborhood, the young baby became fascinated by the power and reputation of the older teens. He wanted to be seen as a boss, someone stylish, important, and feared. But in late 70s and early 80s, New Orleans, seeking that kind of respect, was a deadly gamble. The city's economy was collapsing, industries were fleeing, and the homicide rate was skyrocketing, with nearly 240 murders a year in a city of only 400,000. It was an atmosphere thick with envy. Showing any sign of success made you an immediate target. By the age of 14, Bryan was already displaying the cold, strategic leadership he'd learned from watching his father's business dealings. He was accused of organizing illegal street operations, allegedly positioning younger teens on corners while he managed the logistics from the shadows.
We're gonna win together, we're gonna die together, we're gonna lose together. That was my whole mentality. So I never thought about no insecurity. I never thought that we'll lose. I always went into it with confidence that we're gonna win. For a fact, a nigga gonna hustle now. We ain't gonna let no nigga stop the money now. I don't give a if they, I don't give a who they is. I don't give a about nothing but that money. You heard me?
To protect his growing influence, he surrounded himself with 10 toes down loyalists, understanding that in these streets, a single lapse in loyalty could cost you everything. By 1986, 17-year-old Bryan was a man of means and mystery, catching the attention of his 11-year-old half-brother, Terrence Williams. Terrence had heard the legends, and when Bryan finally pulled up to his house in a brand new SUV with music blasting, the boy was starstruck. But what started as an exciting brotherly moment allegedly took a dark, calculated turn. According to later accounts, Bryan drove the young Terrence to a different area and began a frightening test of his loyalty, exposing the child to levels of violence no 11-year-old should ever witness. Critics often point to this moment as a chilling example of how Bryan used his influence to control those who admired him. By pressuring his younger brother into the game, he set Terrence on a trajectory that would eventually lead him deep into the Magnolia Group's most violent conflicts. During this era, uptown New Orleans became a war zone, with certain areas seeing over 100 homicides a year. It was within this blood-soaked environment that the foundation for a future music empire, and the ruthless reputation that came with it, was truly built.
I'd rather chase the money than the bull. Easy, bro. I chase the money before I chase the. I'm not gonna entertain it. I'm not gonna really waste 1 second on it. I got too much other shit I want not try to do. I want to be able to set the bar so high in this that maybe the nigga who can touch it, he not even much on this planet yet.
In the lawless atmosphere of early 90s New Orleans, where status was measured in fear and expensive cars, Bryan carried himself with an untouchable confidence. While the streets felt unpredictable and law enforcement seemed to lose its grip, he was already looking for a way out, or rather, a way to turn his street capital into something legitimate. He saw the music industry as the ultimate vehicle for power, and by 1991, Bryan and his brother Slim officially launched Cash Money Records. At just 22 years old, Bryan even sketched the label's first logo, a symbol of the empire they intended to build on their own terms without begging for a seat at the table in New York or LA. The funding was there and the vision was clear, but the label lacked a star. New Orleans was an untapped goldmine of talent, yet the local sound hadn't hit the national stage. Their first attempt at success was a 15-year-old rapper named Kilo G. Though his raw talent was undeniable, his debut project failed to catch fire because it leaned too heavily on an East Coast style that didn't resonate with the locals. Bryan and Slim quickly realized that if they wanted to dominate, they had to embrace the heartbeat of their own city: bounce music. Louisiana was moving to a high-energy local rhythm that defined the culture of the housing projects and the clubs. Bryan and Slim pivoted, signing a respected bounce artist named Lil Slim, Michael Pettis, in late 1992.
And we pay for that. So we keep money because what we see, we like to buy. I don't like to wait. I got to come back now. Somebody with me better have my money, have a lot of money some kind of way and get because I want it now. I ain't waiting for it. I got my bag. We always got the duffel bag.
While Lil Slim gained a solid regional following in states like Mississippi and Texas, he still wasn't the breakthrough act that would take Cash Money global. Yet, even as their first few artists struggled to reach commercial heights, the Williams brothers refused to fold. They treated the music business like the streets, staying focused, testing new sounds, and relentlessly signing talent, knowing that in this game, it only takes one hit to change everything forever. Then they finally found a group that started getting real attention: Coming straight from the Magnolia area was a rap group called UNLV, originally made up of Lil Ya and Tech Nine. They had raw street stories, strong personalities, and a sound that felt real to the people around them. Their music stood out because it talked about the harsh realities they had seen growing up. At the time, that kind of raw storytelling wasn't common in mainstream rap, especially coming out of New Orleans. That shock factor made people pay attention fast. UNLV managed to take their real-life experiences and turn them into music that connected with listeners. And with that buzz building, they ended up helping Cash Money Records score its first real wave of attention in the music scene. After helping bring success to the label, you might think UNLV would be treated like family. But according to stories from people around the situation, loyalty didn't always work the way people expected. After their early success, the group decided to bring in another member, Albert Thomas, better known as Yellow Boy. Yellow Boy was clearly talented, nobody could deny that. He had a strong voice, real confidence, and knew how to stand his ground. But Bryan reportedly wasn't happy about him joining the group. And it wasn't because of music. From what people say, it was more about personalities clashing. Yellow Boy had a reputation for being outspoken and not backing down from anyone. If he felt something wasn't right, he would say it straight up. And according to people who followed Cash Money back then, Bryan preferred artists who stayed loyal and didn't question authority too much. So this created tension right away. Ironically, after Yellow Boy joined, UNLV started dropping some of their biggest records. Their popularity grew, shows were selling out, and their name started spreading even more.
So, you know, me with the money thing, that's just my life. That's been my life since I'm a youngster. I always been a hustler about money. So 5-star, you got to have money. If I see something I like to buy it, I like to shop. Gucci, you know, 4-5 pieces could be 10 stacks.
With that kind of success happening, it wasn't easy to just remove someone who was clearly contributing to the momentum. But success also brought bigger questions. Yellow Boy reportedly started asking when the group would start seeing more of the money they were helping generate. He felt like the numbers didn't fully make sense and wanted answers. That's when the relationship reportedly started getting tense between him and Bryan. By late summer 1996, things were still moving forward professionally despite the tension. UNLV had a major opportunity coming up, a professional music video shoot connected to their upcoming album that had the potential to land exposure on MTV and BET. This was the kind of moment that could push them toward national recognition. The shoot was planned for the afternoon with a sunset backdrop near a bridge, giving it that dramatic music video look. Everyone involved was told to be there by around 6:30 p.m. at the latest because this was a serious opportunity that nobody wanted to miss. Bryan showed up. Slim showed up. The camera crew was ready. Security was in place. Everything was set for a big moment. But one big problem. The rappers weren't there. And as the minutes kept passing, frustration started building fast. 30 minutes turned into an hour, then 2 hours. Everyone was waiting, watching the clock, and wondering what was going on. As it turns out, Lil Ya had planned to pick up Tech Nine and Yellow Boy and bring them to the shoot. But things went left when he accidentally fell asleep at home and lost track of time. When he finally woke up around 8 p.m., he rushed to get ready and grab the others. But by the time they finally made it to the location, the opportunity was already slipping away. The camera crew had packed up and left, and all that remained were Bryan and Slim, both clearly upset after what they saw as a huge waste of time and money.
Every day of life and don't say one word to me.
Teach. That's wisdom right there.
I was taught that. That's how I was taught.
Right.
By my brothers, because all of them was in the penitentiary a lot. So
right.
They taught me those rules.
Right. So it's always like, say less, you know what I mean?
Less is the best.
Less is the best.
According to accounts of that night, Bryan reacted strongly. But instead of directing his anger at the driver, he reportedly focused his frustration on Yellow Boy. That's when things started getting heated. Yellow Boy reportedly stepped out of the car confused, basically saying it wasn't even his mistake. Witnesses say the argument quickly became personal. Voices got louder, accusations started flying, and the situation became uncomfortable for everyone standing there. Lil Ya even tried to step in and take responsibility, saying the delay was his fault. But according to stories from people around the situation, Bryan kept his focus on Yellow Boy. That's when people started realizing this might have been about more than just being late. Some believe this was tension that had been building for a while finally boiling over. Yellow Boy, known for not backing down, reportedly stood his ground and challenged Bryan right back. At one point, according to retellings of the incident, Yellow Boy pushed back by questioning money issues the group had been worried about. That's when the argument reportedly shifted from lateness to deeper business disagreements that had been sitting under the surface for a long time. Things were getting way too heated, and the other UNLV members reportedly stepped in trying to calm things down. They suggested settling it with a one-on-one fight instead of letting the situation keep escalating. According to stories from that night, Bryan and Yellow Boy both agreed to handle it that way and keep everyone else out of it. Later that night, people say everyone made their way separately to a neighborhood spot near 4th and Dryads, close to Yellow Boy's grandmother's house. Around 10:30 p.m., Bryan and Slim pulled up, and Yellow Boy was already outside waiting, clearly ready to settle things face to face. As soon as Bryan stepped out of the car, the fight reportedly started right there in the street. Punches were thrown back and forth as both tried to prove a point. Witnesses later claimed Yellow Boy seemed to be getting the better of the exchange, which made the situation even more tense. At one point, Slim reportedly tried to step in and break things up, but others told him to let them finish what they started.
Really took life like, it was more about my business than love. I didn't care about none of that. After I lost my mama, my daddy, my brother, my sisters, the majority of my family, it didn't really matter to me about love because all the love that I lost was gone already. So I put my life into my business and everything. That became love to me, what I love to do. So, to accept somebody in another family that embraced me, that was kind of hard for me to accept, but I ain't gonna start over.
Then things got even more chaotic. Tech 9 reportedly tried to hold Slim back, and in the confusion, another fight almost broke out on the side. For a moment, it looked like the whole situation might turn into a full group fight instead of just the original one-on-one. Eventually, though, everyone started getting tired and the energy died down. The shouting stopped, the punches stopped, and what was left was just silence and tension hanging in the air. One by one, people reportedly started leaving, not knowing if this situation was really over or just getting started. Moments like that can go one of two ways. Either people cool off and move forward, or the problems grow into something much bigger. And in neighborhoods dealing with a lot of pressure, sometimes small conflicts can turn into long-term rivalries. But according to accounts, Bryan later reached out and told the UNLV members to move past the situation and not let it turn into something worse. For the moment, that helped calm things down and prevented things from escalating further. Not long after this situation, UNLV would go on to release what would become their final project under Cash Money's management, marking the end of that chapter of their working relationship. The album ended up performing well, which made the UNLV members start asking serious questions. If the music was making noise and bringing in money, then what was next for them? Were they getting a new deal? Were they finally going to see bigger payments? Those were the questions on everyone's mind.
And I've never been a person to just be super friendly.
Right.
I ain't come up like that. I would talk different.
Right.
I would talk about really the streets. Like, it ain't cool to be friendly. Like, I've never been a friendly man. I'm a respectable man. And I give you all the respect in the world, but I'm not going to be like super friendly down there. I'm not with none of that. I wasn't brought up like that. I was told you could be around a nigga.
But according to accounts from people close to the situation, the earlier tension hadn't really disappeared. Bryan reportedly had no plans to renew their deal, no matter how successful the group had become. That left the group feeling stuck and frustrated after helping build the label's early reputation. So UNLV decided they weren't going to sit around waiting. If opportunities weren't coming to them, they would create their own. That's when they made the move to start their own independent label, UNLV Records, determined to control their own future and business decisions. To make sure everything was done right, they brought in lawyers to review their previous contracts and help structure their new company. But once those lawyers started going through the paperwork connected to their Cash Money deal, they reportedly noticed some serious red flags. According to those reviews, the group may not have received the full payments they expected based on their success. When the members heard this, emotions reportedly ran high. From their point of view, they had helped build the label's early success, didn't get a new deal, and now were being told there could be unpaid money involved too. That combination created a lot of frustration. Some people close to the group said Yellow Boy was especially angry and wanted immediate action. But others in the group tried to stay focused on the legal route, reminding him that acting out could damage their chances of recovering any money they believed they were owed. Their legal team reportedly assured them they had a strong case and would pursue the matter in court. Eventually, the dispute did lead to legal action, and according to accounts of the situation, Bryan ended up having to make payments connected to the case, and that decision would end up leading into even more drama afterward. What makes this situation even more complicated is that 2 of the UNLV members reportedly believed the money situation might have just been a business mistake rather than something personal. From their point of view, if they got paid what they were owed, they were ready to move on and focus on their own path. Tech 9 and Lil Ya were said to be open to resolving things peacefully. Their mindset was simple: just pay us what's owed and everyone can go their separate ways without more drama. That's when Bryan reportedly reached out and told them they could come pick up their payments if they agreed to drop the legal dispute.
To be in business with Cash Money,
I think I be getting a bad rap too, right? Because niggas don't really know how it go, right?
right?
I'm going to sum it up like this. Just say Drew Brees, right?
Right,
He got $100 million contracts.
right,
Probably made $500 million drew out his contract. Then you got Kamari, you got number 13, you got 52 niggas on one football team.
You're right.
And you got to pay the superstars on both sides of the balls, and the catcher, and the coaches, and you got all the staff.
So the 2 members went over to his Eastover property to settle things. According to the story, they knocked. Bryan answered and handed them their checks directly. They looked everything over carefully, making sure the numbers were right. No surprises, no tricks. Everything appeared to check out. After handing over the payments, Bryan reportedly asked one important question: "Where's Yellow Boy?" That's when they explained that Yellow Boy didn't want to meet face-to-face and preferred they just bring his payment back to him. But Bryan reportedly wasn't going for that. According to those accounts, he told them if Yellow Boy wanted his money, he would have to come get it himself. The 2 members didn't argue and just accepted that answer before leaving to cash their own checks. But this only added more tension to an already strained situation.
First of all, I never had a vacation in my life. I've never been on vacation.
Ever.
Ever. So I say when I do take a vacation, it's gonna be for the rest of my life. I ain't never wanted to, I feel like I might be missing something, you know? So I never been on a vacation.
When Yellow Boy heard what happened, reports say he was extremely upset. Instead of just going to pick up his payment and closing the chapter, emotions reportedly took over. According to later reports about the incident, he went to the Eastover neighborhood, but not to collect any check. Accounts say he arrived armed and fired shots toward the property, damaging parts of the house and a vehicle. It was a dangerous and reckless act that could have had even worse consequences. This moment showed just how far the conflict between the 2 sides had escalated and how personal things had become. Thankfully, nobody was inside the house when the shooting happened. That alone probably prevented things from becoming an even bigger tragedy. But no matter how you look at it, this was a serious situation. Firing at the home of someone with Bryan's reputation was guaranteed to bring major consequences, especially with tensions already running high. When Bryan reportedly returned home later and saw the damage, people say he immediately had an idea of who might have been responsible. According to stories told afterward, this incident was seen as crossing a serious line. From that point on, the situation between the 2 sides was no longer just about business disagreements. Just 3 days later, on April 5th, 1997, Cash Money Records had a concert scheduled in Lafayette, Louisiana, a smaller city just a few hours away. It was supposed to be a big night. By this time, they had artists like Lil Wayne, Juvenile, Turk, and BG, and their buzz across the South was growing fast. The label was starting to look unstoppable. Many people from the Cash Money circle were there that night, including Terrence "Gangsta" Williams, someone known for being very loyal to Bryan. But interestingly, not everyone connected to the earlier conflict was present, and that detail would soon matter. While the concert energy was high in Lafayette, Yellow Boy was back in New Orleans at his grandmother's house on 4th and Dryads. According to retellings, he was just sitting there watching TV like any normal night, possibly thinking about everything that had just happened. Some people later speculated he may have been replaying his earlier decisions in his mind. Around 11 p.m., there was reportedly a knock at the door. Yellow Boy looked through to see who it was and seemed to recognize the visitor. Feeling comfortable enough, he opened the door and let the person inside. According to accounts of what happened next, the 2 sat down together on the couch. Then, in a moment that would later become a major part of this story, the visitor suddenly revealed a weapon. Just like that, a rising New Orleans rap figure was gone. leaving behind a story filled with questions and very few clear answers. The loss of a former Cash Money artist shocked people in the local music scene, especially because many believed he still had potential to grow even bigger. To this day, no one has been officially charged in connection with the case, and there has never been clear public proof pointing to exactly who was responsible. Still, rumors started spreading, and one of the biggest talking points became a song Bryan later released called "What Happened to That Boy?" Some listeners have speculated that certain lyrics might have been connected to Yellow Boy, but there has never been any confirmed link. Music often pulls from many experiences, and without proof, it remains speculation. What people do point out is that Yellow Boy wasn't widely known for having major public conflicts outside of the disputes connected to his former label situation. But whether Bryan had any involvement in what happened has never been proven, and that part of the story remains unanswered. Some people debate whether the earlier shooting incident played a role in escalating tensions, while others say the real lesson here is about how quickly business disagreements can turn personal when communication breaks down. Situations like this often become cautionary tales about contracts, trust, and how important it is for artists to fully understand their business deals. Sadly, Yellow Boy would not be the only former Cash Money artist whose relationship with the label ended badly. As the story continues, attention starts to shift toward another early name connected to the label's beginnings: Kilo G. Kilo G was actually Cash Money's very first signed artist. Even though his career didn't reach the heights people expected, some believe his struggles weren't just about the music itself, but also about timing, promotion, and the difficult early stages of building a brand new label. And when people say that some artists felt overlooked, Kilo G himself was one of them. He reportedly felt like once Bryan and Slim found new talent that started getting more attention, he was slowly pushed to the side. From his point of view, it felt like he went from being the first face of the label to barely being mentioned anymore. To be fair, from a business standpoint, focusing on the artists who were getting the biggest response probably seemed like the smartest move for the label's growth. But feelings don't always follow business logic. Kilo reportedly felt like he had been promised a bigger future that never fully came together. At the end of the day, business decisions can feel personal when someone believes they were offered a life-changing opportunity. And in a competitive environment like New Orleans at that time, emotions could run high when people saw others rising while they felt stuck in the same place. Some people from the area later said there was a lot of talk going around the streets, with rumors that Kilo had been speaking negatively about Bryan out of frustration. Whether those stories were exaggerated or not, word travels fast in tight communities, and reputations mattered a lot. Even if it was just talk, people who followed Bryan's story say he didn't like hearing his name come up in negative conversations. Respect and image meant everything in those circles, and even small rumors could turn into bigger problems if left unchecked. On January 15, 1998, Kilo G was reportedly at his mother's home in the 7th Ward on what seemed like a completely normal afternoon. Nothing seemed unusual about the day, but according to reports, that calm would soon be interrupted when someone came to the door. Kilo reportedly got up to check who it was and walked over to the door. Looking through the peephole to see who had arrived, he had no idea that this moment would become another tragic chapter connected to the early history surrounding Cash Money Records. Kilo reportedly recognized the man at the door and felt comfortable enough to let him inside. But according to reports, the moment he turned his back to walk away, the visitor suddenly pulled out a weapon. Just like that, another young life connected to the early Cash Money story was tragically cut short. What makes this situation complicated is that the motive behind Kilo's death was never officially confirmed. New Orleans during that time had many different conflicts happening, and without clear evidence, it's impossible to directly connect what happened to any one person or situation. There has never been proof showing Bryan or Cash Money were responsible. Still, some observers have pointed out similarities between different incidents connected to people in that circle. But speculation is speculation. Facts are facts. And without real evidence, those questions remain unanswered. Like they say, telling the story is one thing, proving it is another. What is known is that two of Cash Money's earliest artists lost their lives after business relationships fell apart. That alone keeps people talking and debating what really happened during those early years of the label's rise. So what do you think? Do you think these situations were just tragic coincidences or something deeper? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is far from over. If you found this deep dive into the early days of the Williams Empire interesting, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with anyone who lives for hip-hop history. Drop a comment below and let me know, did you know Birdman's story started this dark? The saga is only getting started, and you won't want to miss what's next. In the next chapter, we're breaking down the moment that changed the music industry forever. The arrival of a young, hungry kid named Dwayne Carter. Stay tuned, because the story of how Lil Wayne entered Birdman's life and the birth of the father-son bond that built a billion-dollar dynasty gets a whole lot crazier from here.